Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Dental MBA podcast, sponsored by eAssist. I'm Penny Reed, excited to be back with you for this session, and even more excited about our guest today, which is Steve Parker from The Profitable Dentist. And hey, Steve, how's it going today?
Fantastic. How are you doing, Penny?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. So let's start with I wonder how many dentists are not familiar with the Profitable Dentist because it was one of the first publications, well, really one of the first publications out there. And I have a long history with your organization and just so passionate about what you guys stand for. So why don't we start there and share a little bit about the Profitable Dentist and what you do, and then we'll dive right in.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on. Thanks for, spreading our message. We started out as the National Dental Newsletter, and Dr. Woody Oakes literally printed it in the basement of his dental office on an old Xerox machine. And people would write in and say, they would see him speak or they would hear something. He'd say, well, send me your address. And, I get together on a call once a week with Travis McPhee, Dr. McPhee, and a couple other guys, Craig Callan, and they just chatted. They just said, hey, what are you doing? And then they wrote it down, and that literally became a newsletter. And they didn't charge anything for it. They just, sent it because, I don't know, 8 or 10 people wanted it. And then they did a mailing. They did one mailing and said, well, let's see if anybody else wants this. And it ended up at its height, it was probably in the 20,000 range. They were literally mailing it out. And then that evolved to an actual kind of not a really shiny, glitzy magazine, but fancier than a newsletter, which
Mhm.
evolved to the Profitable Dentist magazine. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s. And it really is, you're right on. It was one of the first practice management publications. So
Mhm.
there was always been a lot of clinical magazines for dentists, how to do atraumatic extraction or what, in
Right.
those days there weren't implants, but whatever the treatment was, there were clinical magazines, but nobody really did practice management. And what Woody and the gang figured out was that's where they struggled. They weren't
Right.
having problems with being a dentist. They were having problems being profitable and staying in business.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how we grew. Then we started doing events. We started the Destin Spring Break Seminar, which you're very familiar with.
Oh, yes.
We actually got a nasty letter from the ADA at the time that said, how dare you put the word profitable and dentist in the same
I
sentence?
seem to
That's
remember
hubris
that.
and that's terrible, and you
Yes.
can't do that. So we said, so are you saying that the only good dentists are unprofitable dentists? And then, we came to terms, and we were the first organization to give private CE outside of, say, your state organization, the Kentucky Board of Dentistry or the Chicago Midwinter. So we pioneered a lot of practice management before it even kind of had a name. It was, non-clinical, how to run a dental practice stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we are today. We stick with it. We were talking about my a little pitch for our friends, the Academy for Private Dental Practices.
Mhm.
That's our audience. If you're a private dentist, even if you have a small group and some associates and but you're dentist owned, that's who we speak to. Things you didn't learn
Yeah.
in, dental school.
Things you didn't learn
So
in dental school. Well, and
that's it.
it as you were talking, it really reminded me of what an influence Woody Oakes and the Profitable Dentist magazine and the Spring Break seminar had on my early days as an office manager and especially as a consultant. First national article that I ever published was in the Profitable Dentist magazine. I remember having it on the tables at one of my seminars to show all my, I think every office got a copy. Woody sent me a big stack of them. Um, Largest first big dental meeting where I ever spoke. I think I walked in the room and there were about 500 people in there. And I think I had to walk back out and take a deep breath. This was in 1999.
Mhm.
But it was just so many great memories, so many learnings, and how wonderful that you are still carrying the torch and innovating and showing dental practice owners how to be successful and how to be profitable.
Mm.
It's if not, then all they've done is bought themselves a really hard job. So we want to
Yes.
be sure that they can do more than that. So I love the title that you chose for today. How dental schools set you up to fail as a practice owner. We just kind
Mhm.
of have to let that sit there for a second and say, "Ouch." So, tell us more, Steve, about how that. What does that mean? How dental schools set dentists up to be a failure as a practice owner?
You got to let that marinate, a little bit, and just so what I mean by that is, I'm not a dentist. I've owned dental practices, owned dental labs, own a dental magazine, own dental. I've consulted with very, very large companies, and what the sort of the research, the deep dive that I did, I figured out that what you're taught in dental school, think of it this way: how many really good artists do you know that got an MBA? And how many good MBAs do you know that went to art school? It literally is a left brain, like right brain thing. One is analytical, methodical, procedural. The other is sort of managing what's in front of you at that moment for the best outcome. And it can take 20 paths. It's like me driving from Louisville to Destin, Florida. I can take 10 different ways to get there. And maybe I want to get there fast, so I picked this way. Maybe I want to stop by and see some things. Maybe when my kids were younger, we had to go to the stop in Birmingham at Space Camp. So
Mhm,
we didn't go straight to Destin. We kind of went to Destin this way and came back over, and then they wanted to do a little thing. So it all gets you to the same place. Well, that's what they teach you in business school. Um, so I'll have dentists every day, Penny, that ask me, well, should I go back and get an MBA? And the answer is no. What you are lacking are things that, honestly, you can hire most of. Now, you
mhm,
still need to be the leader of your business, and you need to understand what that means. But it's not like being a dentist and say, okay, I'm going to do implants. So I need to go take 50 grand worth of implant courses and how to do implants. So
mhm.
what I mean by that fundamentally is we have, I always tell an example of a young guy that I knew growing up, went to school with my kids. He's 30-ish now. He spent 2 years working as a rep for Henry Schein. Um, Thought, wow, dental practice things, I don't know why this is so hard. I'm going to hook up with a buddy. We're going to start one. They own about 12 or 13 practices. It's taken them 3 years now. They probably have a 20-something million-dollar valuation, and every dentist around here hates them. Um, he spends his whole day figuring out how to run his business. He works
Mhm,
on his business.
mhm,
Every dentist who owns a practice spends their whole day figuring out how to work in their practice. They're using that left brain skill that was drilled into them with 4 years of dental school. He's using his right brain. Okay, somebody just came to me and said, "Hey, I got 3 offices, 100 miles away, and I'm thinking of selling them. I'd like to join somebody." Or he reaches out and says, "We want to grow 5 new practices by the end of next year." It's still the same dentists. So
mm,
you can't argue really with the dentistry. It's not a 500 office DSO that does terrible dentistry and only cares about money. Even though I would argue you can't build $1 billion dental corporation and suck as at treatment, you're
right.
just doing a different thing.
Mhm,
So a lot of dentists were trained to be a really good dentist, come out of school, and you'll be successful. And along comes insurance, along comes marketing, along comes the internet. So
along
now it's not
comes
just
along comes these people that come to work every day that need a
right.
little bit of managing.
And along comes you cannot believe the calls and emails I got. And this is where it really clicked in. So when I started doing mindset and I learned about mindsets and left brain mindset, right brain mindset, and a thing called a reticular activating system.
Oh,
I'm going to throw out
yes.
some big words and stuff.
Yeah.
It's how you think.
Mhm,
And they really do think differently. During COVID, I got calls from docs who said, "Hey, do you have a DVD?" Because, from our good old days, if you were a dentist, you got our mail every 10 days about
yes.
DVDs, the courses from Destin. Do you have we're under a shutdown. COVID has taken over the world. Do you have a DVD on how to handle this? Well, no, I
Right.
don't. I don't have a DVD on, a meteorite that hits the earth and,
What do
covers
we
it in
do?
ash. There are things that you don't. But in a dentist, that left brain methodical mindset, that's first thing to do
Mhm.
is go to somebody, get a 7-step process to deal with this. They don't exist.
Mhm.
Business owner, the MBA, or just, a guy who's got an accounting degree and worked for Henry Schein says, all right, what are we going to need to do? We can't keep paying our people, but we need to keep them. So how can we manage some of those things? Our software, we've been griping about how we couldn't get it updated for the last 2 years. Looks like we're going to be off for about 6 weeks. Let's work on the software.
Right.
They approached the problems that were in front of them, managed them, and dentists didn't. So
Mhm.
even when I speak, we've talked before, when I speak to dental schools, I have changed how I speak. And I don't speak about accounts receivable. And I don't go into fourth years and say, here's how AR works, here's how marketing works. We're going to give you an hour on taxes.
Mhm.
It doesn't help. It makes you feel like you've accomplished something when you didn't.
Right.
What I speak on is now is your career. So if you are ready to be an entrepreneur, then come out of dental school, take on $500,000 worth of debt, start your practice. If you found your soulmate in dental school, both of you are dentists, you're going to need $1 million
Mhm.
debt before you get patient number one. That might not be the smartest approach. You have a multitude of career paths right now. You could
Mhm.
go work for be a big DSO. You can pay off your student loans in 3 or 4 years. If you pay attention, you can see how a profitable dental practice runs. Very few of them in a DSO are unprofitable. I can tell you that. If they are, they fix them. You can see how structurally it works, not clinically. You already know that.
Mhm.
Your university gave you a degree and your state gave you a license. So you're fine as a dentist. But the business part of it is where you're going to struggle. Work there 3 years, 4 years, pay attention, and you might say, man, I'd like somebody else to take care of that. I'm happy being an employee, and Penny, their employees taking home $1 million a year
Oh, yes.
as an employee of a big DSO. So dental school sets you up to be a really good dentist, and they
Mhm.
give you a degree that says you are. Your state gives you a license that says you're really good, but they don't say the business part of it is what you're going to lay awake and struggle with every
Mhm.
day, every night.
Mhm.
So that's why we try to talk about the mindsets. It's not your fault. It's not the dental school's fault. It's just they are two very competing things.
Right.
It's hard to be loose and artistic over here, while you got to be methodical and doing debit and credits over here.
That's
So does
true.
that
And
make
I
sense?
think it makes 100% sense to me. And I think we have seen a little bit of a shift in,
Mhm.
what originally attracted dentists to go to dental school, right? Most of them
Yes.
wanted to, or all of them were thinking, hey, I want to be a practice owner. And now we have some that really are like, hey, what a great career. I can work 2 or 3 days a week, right? We see more female dentists, and
Oh,
there are more that do have a business mindset that are like, I'm artistic enough. I think I can figure it out. But I totally agree. That's not what attracts most individuals to dental school is the business side. So it does create a little bit of a paradox there for sure.
well, think
Um,
about there's an assumption if you go to dental school, you're going to be an entrepreneur.
right.
One of my favorite books, and I always keep a copy around here, The E-Myth. I don't
E-Myth.
know if you've read The E-Myth.
Oh yes, Michael
Um,
Gerber.
it's got, yeah, Michael Gerber, and he'll say, if you're a plumber and you work for Joe's Plumbing, and you're the best employee they have, you're a great plumber. You're like magic.
Mhm.
You're the drain whisperer or something.
You're the MacGyver
Oh,
of
you
plumbing.
are. What's the first thing that people tell you? You
You
should
should
start your
open
own
your own
plumbing business.
business.
And it sucks, you hate it, and you go broke and you lose, your 401k from Joe's Plumbing. It's because you're a great plumber. You're not a
Mhm.
good business person. It is an entirely different skill set. If employees are grumpy and you're an employee for Joe, you just get to gripe about the guy that works with you.
Yeah.
And if the truck breaks down, you get to gripe about it and get another truck. If you're the owner, those are now in your lap today. while you have to do the plumbing.
It's true.
And so it's not just dentistry, but there is this assumption, and has been for 100 years, if you get a dental degree, why, you're going to own your own business.
Yeah,
You're the
true.
owner somehow at some point.
That is true. Well, great insight. So let's talk about we've talked about the existing, state of things, so to
Mhm.
speak. What is the future of private practice? What are you seeing now, and where do you see that going?
So what I see is, you can be a very successful private practice owner, but not the way you could have 20 years ago,
Hmm.
30 years ago, when there was no insurance. It really didn't matter. And you just had to drive down the street and say, here's an empty space in a mile-long stretch. I'm going to rent some space, put up a sign and say dentist.
Hmm.
And the people who drive by will know, hey, there's a new dentist on my way home. So we need a dentist. That's who we're going to. And if I bill you $900 for a crown, you're going to write me a check for $900 for the
Right.
crown. All those things just blew up in the last couple of decades. So you have to adapt with them. And that's where I see dentists struggling, is they want to come in and do the same thing they did when they graduated from dental school 22 years ago,
Hmm.
and they can't understand why they're making less money, payroll's harder, taxes are going up, their employees are griping about health insurance, and they love to give it to them until they find out it's $1,500 an employee per month.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, all these things hit them. You have to look at your role differently. So
Hmm.
the difference I see is understand you don't need to be doing everything. You need to sort of put your mindset separately. Here's your working in your business mindset, and here's your working on your business mindset. And the people who do that successfully can build a awesome career as
Hmm.
a dentist owner.
Hmm.
It will be harder to run a single practice with one dentist. You can do it. It's going to be hard to be firmly in the upper middle class financially doing that. And it's going to be hard to sell your practice 20 years from now doing that.
Hmm.
But it's not hard to, and here's the funny thing, Penny. Most docs, 96% of dentists can't retire financially at the age of 65, according to the ADA. Their sole source of retirement is selling their practice to, some young person coming out of dental school. Those people have the internet. They know how to
Yeah.
value a practice.
Yeah.
It's not yours.
Right.
And they don't want to take over something. They don't want to work for 50 grand a year for 3 days a week that you want to take off now.
Hmm.
And they don't have to. So that career path is now gone. So
Hmm.
you have to be smart in the way that you look at your business. And one of the things that we try to do through my magazine, through our events, through things like the Academy for Private Dental Practices, for those groups, AGD, even the ADA, is help dentists understand that you don't need an MBA, but you need to understand your role as the leader.
Hmm.
And profit is an important thing. It's not a terrible thing. You have to be profitable. I promise you, whoever you lease from or whoever your mortgage is with, and your employees and your insurance company and Uncle Sam, they want you to be profitable. And if you're not, you don't get to be a dentist.
Yeah.
So
Very
the
true.
future is, I think, this distinction where, and you said it a while ago, females in dentistry. Um, One of the reasons that DSOs are thriving is because I think we're probably 55, 56% of graduates this year will be women,
Hmm.
young women. And if they decide they want to, work for a year or two and have a baby, they don't want to take 6 weeks off. They want to take 6 months off.
Hmm.
They want to take a year off. And if they work for a DSO, the DSO says, fantastic, take a year off. When you're ready to come back, we got a job for you. It might
Right.
not
We're
be in the
here.
downtown office, might
Yeah.
be in the suburb office. And if you do that 2 years from now, great. They love to have you.
Hmm.
So their supply and demand has met up in that situation.
Hmm.
And you can't undo that. So that genie's out of the bottle. But what
Hmm.
you can do is create a practice that the beauty of it for a private dentist is, if there's something you want to do, you can start doing it next week.
Yeah.
If you work for a DSO, and you love doing, I don't know, whatever kind of treatment it is, 150 offices have to change. You don't get the freedom
Right.
to do that. So there's a lot of, it's like any small business, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot you can do. You can experiment. I see a lot of evolution in oral systemic health. We do a lot with the American Academy of Oral Systemic Health, AOSH. It's, you don't see that in a giant DSO dental practice because they got 150 docs. They're like McDonald's. They can't allow one McDonald's to make in the South. I don't know what they would make, McTurnip greens or something.
McTurnip green.
Yeah, that's not allowed, man.
Or McSushi
McSushi.
up in Seattle.
Yeah, you don't get to do that. You
Yeah.
make what they say because that's how that big scalable model works. But if you're just Dr. Jones and you want to have dentistry and sushi, you can do it. And if
Right.
you're profitable and you can buy, you live in the house you want, live where you want, put your kids to college and take the vacations you want, that's all it's about. So you have that freedom, but you can't, I always say, don't try to compete, don't try to out Walmart on things. If you're a
Right.
pharmacy and pharmacies 30 years ago went through this same thing,
Oh yeah.
they give away antibiotics. So if you're a pharmacy trying to compete with Walmart or Kroger or Meijer or Publix, you're going to get your butt kicked. But they came along and said, you know what? There's this compounding thing. And there are all these things that we can do that Walgreens isn't going to do. They've got pharmacists. They don't have people who know this. So there's been this giant resurgence in the pharmaceutical sole owner and small groups that do things like compounding. And that's what I see with dentistry. It can
Yeah.
be fun, but if
Right.
you just want to do bread and butter dentistry, the cheapest, it's going to be really hard to be successful and profitable and do that and get out of this career alive.
Do you see that it will steer as far as private practice? Will it steer more towards fee for service, or do you think there will continue to be a blend based on the competition and service mix?
I see medical and dental insurance merging. My wife worked for a Fortune 100 company, Humana, and she worked with Medicare and plans. She created plans, and that's one of the things that was always a frustration with her is dentistry is a like an add-on.
Right.
It doesn't really count as health insurance. Well, last year those codes started to merge, so it's not going to happen in a year or two or three. But dentistry is finding itself more into medical billing. So I see that that's one of the things that will help it become more. I want to say this in a sort of politically correct way. Let the DSOs deal with that. Let them do that. I'm a fan of whoops. I'm a fan of fee for service. And for small dental practices. I don't like my customers being loyal to my price. A DSO will take whatever insurance you've got. Now, on the back end, they get a higher reimbursement than you do, but they are also saying, yeah, come in, we'll take your insurance.
Right.
So I think what you can offer as a sole practitioner is that we're fee for service. Even in dental insurance, if somebody is really good and you teach them how to go through the math on it, I like membership plans.
Yeah, I do too.
Because you're still getting your full fee and your patient is getting what they feel is cheaper and let somebody else take the cut. But you don't, the practices that I've worked with, we slowly and gradually got out of PPOs and got out of insurance. Will still help the patient file and all, but you can't start to discount. You can't start giving away your service.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. At the end of the day, if you're taking less and less and less reimbursement from a PPO or an insurance company on average,
Well, eventually the math doesn't work anymore.
oh, your insurance is going
Yeah.
up, your rent's going up,
Yep.
costs are going up, and your margin just gets squeezed.
Smaller
And
and
now you've
smaller.
got to find more new patients that make less money per patient. So
Yeah.
the
Very
place
true.
you can do fee for service is private practice.
Yeah. Very, very true. Hey, I still remember the days when I first started as a consultant and there were hardly any PPOs. And
Right.
one of the first things that I would do when I would come in and work with a client was like, okay, let's raise your fees 5%. I could have been the worst consultant on the planet,
Hmm.
and my offices were still having a 20% increase just because of the math,
Right.
just because
We
of the
have
math. And
tricked.
so, be not having the business mindset like what you were talking about
Mhm.
exactly before, a couple of decades ago, not that impactful. But now competition, profit margins, demands, employee demands, not just in dentistry, but everywhere. It's,
Well, so
interesting.
insurance came along. I remember when you had major medical. I've
Hmm.
always owned companies, so I gave employees major medical, and which meant, it cost me this much. And if they had a big thing, the insurance covered it. And if
Right.
they had, a cold, they just paid the doctor. We didn't even
Right.
think about it. I'm dating myself there, Penny.
Well, I know
And then,
exactly what you're talking about, so I'm
oh,
nodding my
that's
head.
all it was. Well, then insurance came along, and now you had a book. And the
Mhm.
doctor said, wait a minute, if I'm in that book, look at all the new patients I can get and I can fill up my schedule. And that worked for insurance,
Mhm.
medical insurance. And I'm using air quotes there because it's regulated by the insurance companies. The codes are the same.
Mhm.
State laws dictate it. Well, along comes dental insurance. It's kind of prepaid dental. And it's
Right.
not regulated in most states by anybody. It's regulated by, without naming insurance company names, it's regulated by them.
Right.
In fact, for a long time, they didn't even have to use the same codes. If
Yeah.
you were filing, with this company, use one code, with that company, another code. And we sort of tricked docs into thinking, okay, but I'm in the book and I get more patients.
Mhm.
And I'll go into somebody and I'll find out they're writing off 35 or 40%
Ugh.
for a PPO. And they'll have $1 million practice. And I'll say, here's what I'm going to do for you. You give me $400,000 next year, and I'll guarantee you 20 patients a month. And they'll say, well, that's crazy. Well, if you're writing off 40% of your $1 million just to get new patients by accepting that PPO,
Mhm.
that's what you're doing. Heck,
Mhm.
I can walk down the street and hand out $100 bills to the first
Right.
20 people and
Yeah.
say, hey, if you want to be a new patient, I've just spent 2 grand. That's $24,000 a year. I just made about $360,000. I'm the smartest consultant in dentistry.
Yeah. Yep.
But there's no math that goes on. You just sign up because a patient says, do you take my
Well,
PPO?
and I
And you
think a lot
do.
of it is fear. I mean, I do think that it's good marketing and good customer service to manage the insurance on behalf, file patients don't know how to file claims, right? I
Right.
mean, it's a,
Right.
but as far, if you've got the team, the communication skills to not have to be involved in a PPO, why would you ever
Yeah.
want to? Yeah.
I just paid for a couple of crowns with one of my very best friends who's a dentist, and I said, Ken, this is just painful. I said, but when I think about it, I mean, he did 2 crowns in 10 years. Um, I've come out ahead by not having dental insurance and
Yeah.
paying for
Well, a
service.
lot of people do. We have
Yeah,
it because of my husband's employer, but there have been times
right.
before where I've done the math and I'm like, I don't even know why we would want that.
You
So
rarely come out ahead.
what are some ways, now that we've kind of put some context around the conundrum that a lot of
Mhm.
private practice owners or pot- potential owners, dentists that are considering ownership, what are some ways that an average dentist can change their mindset to compete?
So one of them is again, think of my buddy who worked for Henry Schein. He does not he doesn't micromanage everything that goes on in the office.
Hmm.
If the sink quits working, he calls a plumber.
Right.
Plumber comes out, fixes it, and he knows the value of his time.
Hmm.
And one of the things I would say is for docs who are listening, understand the value of your time. Your time is valuable with a patient in the chair, um, doing $3 of restorative for every dollar of hygiene that you bring in. So keep those hygiene chairs filled, whatever it takes, and you're getting $3 for every dollar of hygiene.
Hmm.
If a chair's empty, don't say I'm going to cut the grass on Thursdays because I mean, Penny, I've had docs who would carve out time at the end of a day to get, because the grass needed cut, and you know, some guy wanted $50 to cut it,
Oh my word.
and not do the math. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean about the business mindset. That chair should be producing 550 to 750 an hour in
Mm-hmm.
production. You just became the most expensive lawn care company in your town, or plumbing. I had a
Mm-hmm.
doctor of mine, they called and canceled appointment because the sink broke. And the
Oh
plumber
my
wanted
word.
like $300 to come do a drain or something. You immediately became the most expensive plumber in town.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to do it all, working in the business and on the business, that's how your mindset gets confused. That's how your left
Mm-hmm.
and right mindset get competing. So I like things like e-assist is one of my absolute favorites.
Me
Uh,
too.
and here's the thing. There are, especially in a small practice, not just you, doctor, but your staff. If you have somebody who's a great office manager and great at the front desk, and they have kind of pieces of 6 or 7 or 8 jobs that they do, I promise you, and I don't even need to know them personally, they will rock at one of those
Mm-hmm.
because they love it and it's what they do. They will suck at one of those because they hate it. And it's probably going to be collections. They hate it because nobody wants to call and ask for money. So
Right.
every week collections go up and it's not getting done. And then there's those 3 or 4 or 5 jobs they'll do when you ask them to do it and they remember and they'll forget 3 weeks from now.
Right.
So I like even in my own business. Um, I know it might seem expensive, but I have somebody clean the office. You know why? Because we work hard here every week.
Yeah.
I don't want, and yes, I could say, hey, everybody, at the end of every Friday, let's just clean stuff up. They love coming in on Monday and places is clean.
Yeah.
Um, Pay somebody who does a thing that you don't want to do. E-Assist does a thing you have to do. Here's the other thing that I've found is services like that you pay an expert to do
Mm-hmm.
usually pay for themselves like in the first month.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and
Because
especially with e-assist is why I used to refer before I came to work here is for the dental billing, it's a percentage, right? So
right,
unlike a team member that I mean, I can remember in coaching clients, they're like, well, Susie, I don't know why the accounts receivable looks the way it does. I guess I'm going to have to hire another person because Susie is always on the phone. And
right.
it's the confusing maybe it's a lack of technology, maybe it's a lack of training or a lack of knowledge, but
Mhm.
confusing busyness with results.
Yes.
And that is one area where the DSOs have figured out economies of scale. Is they have a much better trained, seasoned revenue cycle department.
Right.
And I think the other thing too, just along with what you said, yeah, they may not need an MBA, although there are those, say small percentage of dentists that just, you know what I'm saying, they've got that
Yeah.
in their blood and they want to get it. But
Yes.
it if you work with a good dental CPA or a great consultant, they can teach you how to read your income statement. I mean, I
Hmm.
think that you don't have to know how to put it in. And, I changed my major from accounting to management after my first semester of federal tax accounting. It made me want to
Right.
cry.
Yep.
But I can read an income statement. I can do forecasting. I mean, there's some skills that definitely you can learn from a business consultant or a great accountant. But I think once again, it's the whole, you don't have to be the one to make all the journal entries and
Right.
keep up with all the tax laws. You need to find someone that can help you do that really well.
Well, at the end of the day, it's paying people who do a thing really well. Now,
Hmm.
I would, and I just threw out ESS because it's right there next to your head, and I love ESS. I don't get anything for saying that, but I wouldn't pay E-Assist to do my plumbing.
I wouldn't
I
either.
pay Joe's Plumbing to do my plumbing.
Yeah.
And that again, that's a mindset is find people that do the important things you need
Hmm.
and it's all you do. So I promise you, not that my office manager isn't a wonderful person, but if she is doing this and this and this and the billing, you're going to come in and immediately just do better. Um, because it's all you do. So find those, so my advice is always find those components that, I mean, your office manager, I love ADOM for that very reason. There's a
Absolutely.
pitch for ADOM, don't get anything for that, but they are training professionals to come in and run the office and do professional things. And one of the things they're going to say is, Doc, here's the thing. We can get a whole new employee, maybe 30 or 40 grand a year worth of overhead, or we can pay somebody to do it. And I think I know you do, and you can speak to the e-assist part, but I think you get paid when they get paid, or some kind of a, so it literally
Absolutely.
costs you
Yeah.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Find those things, set it up, have monthly accountability calls, and then let these people do the job that you paid them to do.
Yeah.
And you go back to doing the dentistry. And if it gets off course, then correct it. But for the most part, know that the business is functioning.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, if you lose your office manager, if you have 3 or 4 people doing it, if you lose an office manager and eAssist is doing the billing, like literally nothing happened.
Then right. That's
So
so true. Very
so
true.
that's the advice on how to, as you move forward and want to be successful as a practice owner, learn to do the things you do well. You do the dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
Find your team and let them do what they do well, and don't expect things that they don't do well. I know Susie used to be a great assistant. Now you're kind of running the front desk, but can you do the billing and the collections and the insurance filing and do all that stuff? I promise you, I mean, it's like a giant sieve. You got money leaking through that, and it's
Sure.
not her. It's the situation she's in. She's not
Mm-hmm.
trained for it,
Well,
educated
and then
for it.
she's probably also getting burned out. And so
Yeah,
then
and
you'll
she
have to
probably
look at,
hates it.
yeah,
Yeah,
she might. Then you may have to look at replacing her because she just
yes,
decides it's too much.
and that's
Um,
even more expensive.
Even
So,
more expensive. Absolutely. Well,
how's that for a
s
pitch for eAssist? That
yeah, well,
came to
no, it
me
was
when I was
awesome.
looking at it.
Thank you. And hey, that's how I ended up here, right? It was
Yeah.
a way that my clients we found to help solve a problem. And it definitely is something that every practice that's filing insurance, even if whether they're accepting assignment
Yeah.
of benefit or not, has to deal with. Such great insight, Steve, and I always love talking about the business of dentistry. It's very much a passion of mine and of ours. Our co-founder and CEO is still a practicing dentist, and that's how we stumbled upon providing this service. Was he needed it in his own practices? So, tell us more about how to learn more about the Profitable Dentist and the resources that you guys have.
theprofitabledentist.com. We have gone to a strategy we call digital first, and really since COVID. And you'll see a lot of like magazines, again, I'm going to use air quotes, are probably a thing of the past. They're
Mhm.
more online, disconnected article content. So what you won't see is 64 pages in a little flip book that you have to go through on your phone. What you will see are articles from really smart people like Penny Reed that are what we call SMEs, subject matter experts.
Mhm.
They have a thing they're really good at. They know, and that's who we look to contribute. So theprofitabledentist.com, we've got newsletters you can subscribe to for different things. We do a little bit of clinical content. We have some people we just love who've spoken for us for 120 years or whatever, and they're just good and everybody loves them. And but our real strength is you being a private dentist and wanting to understand how to run your practice better and smarter and really make connections. So we're doing small meetings instead of our one big giant meeting. We do very selective slices. So we might be doing digital dentistry. So we'll put together a meeting that's maybe 150, 200 docs. They're there for one thing. It's digital dentistry. It may be retirement. It may be that kind of thing, as opposed to what we call a big tent, like Destin. Destin, you came for 4 days and you could get everything. And those are just harder to do these days.
They are, and there's
Let
more
the big
competition
meetings do
and
that.
yeah, I agree.
But theprofitabledentist.com, go there, sign up for a newsletter. We try to keep people, our audience of private practice dentists, informed kind of on what's going on, and really more than anything, just give them a place to connect,
Yeah.
meet people like you, and meet people who are really smart. There's always a connection. You can always click and say, "Hey, I want to email this person."
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is just making connections. Dentists who have a situation, they think they're the only ones, and it turns out, what do you know? There's a whole bunch of people in their same boat. They click, and we make that connection for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for your time today, for everything that you're doing for private practice dentistry, these dentist practice owners, and hopefully our audience will tune in and take you up on that. Hey, join the community and look for some of their events out there. It's a wonderful group. It really you said it so well. It really was the very beginning of practice management, really pioneering out there. And it's so awesome that you're carrying on that legacy and showing dentists new and better ways to be successful if they want to be a practice owner. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Take care. I'll look forward to seeing you on the road. And for our listeners and viewers, we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Penny.